I've got this file where I kept the most sensitive documents. I codenamed it Albatross.
When did you feel that Malaysia was going to break up? Was it a surprise to you?
In the early days, there were a lot of discussions about the changing the terms of Malaysia by the Prime Minister Rajaratnam and Chin Chai. We got nowhere. Now, on 15 July 1965, I met Tun Razak and Dr. Ismail. I persuaded him that the only way out was for Singapore to secede completely.
How did Tun Razak and Dr. Ismail react?
They themselves were in their agreement with the idea. In fact, they had themselves come to the conclusion that Singapore must get out. The question was how to get Singapore out.
So the secession of Singapore was well planned by you and Tun Razak. It was not foisted on Singapore.
No, it was not.
I had believed in Malaysian merger and the unity of these two territories. As people connected by geography, economics, and ties of kinship. Would you mind if we stop for a while?
I think where he had the nearest to a nervous breakdown was after the press conference. He was very, very upset.
I remember at 10 a.m. on Monday, we proclaimed independence. From my room in the city hall, I saw many motor cars, all returning home. I was in my office at about 4 o'clock when the streets were deserted.
Well, what started this whole process was a riot which began in 21st July 1964, the Prophet Muhammad birthday riot. You can see that was a complete country fall onto the wall and crack.
Putting the bits and pieces together, it all started when they came down here, including UMNO leaders and the Tunku in September. We growing up there, having large, huge crowds, and although the Tunku had agreed that he would not interfere in Singapore's elections, and I had said, yes, I'd leave your elections alone. The Tunku came down and spoke for the alliance in the election rallies here. Instead of winning the 3 Malay seats, they lost all 3. On the other hand, they set off in Rajaratnam and Chin Chai and Ong Pang Boon and all the others who came from Malaysia an impulse to move into Malaysian politics in return. They discussed participation in the next elections, and the Central Executive Committee felt that they should take part.
As the election campaign went on and we saw the crowd at the rally, we thought we would gain some seats.
And although we lost 8 out of 9 contests, we had already demonstrated the potential for mustering mass support. They became very unsettled and unhappy and fearful of PAP. I think if Dr. To and Rajaratnam had not decided on this during my absence touring Africa, there might not have been made separation, the history of Singapore might have been different.
I think one of the reasons why they did is because of the fear instilled them by the UMNO leaders from particularly Java. He was very cleverly rousing emotion and convincing the place.
Kalau persatuan ini ada, kalau perpaduan ini ada, insya Allah tidak ada satu kuasa yang boleh menjajah kita, yang boleh merendah-rendahkan kita, yang boleh mengecik-ngecikkan kita. Bukan satu Lee Kuan Yew, 1000 Lee Kuan Yew. Maka di sini saya berkata, memberitahu Lee Kuan Yew, kamu diam dan jangan suruh kami diam.
That was the genesis of the riots on Prophet Muhammad's birthday.
All the indications show that there has been organization and planning behind this outbreak to turn this into an ugly communal clash. All that was needed was someone to trigger it off.
Well, I was very angry because it was a fairly open secret in PAP circles that the riots had been inspired by people out to do the PAP hit.
I didn't expect this kind of trouble. Later on, we understood that when they said blood being running, that it was our blood who was killed.
It was only after the riots when we were really cornered, because the Malaysian government could at will switch on this riots and get people killed, that Mr. Lee decided on a counter-offensive to make life intolerable for them. I think it was Mr. Lee's policy that if we were to get good terms out of that, either total separation or a new working agreement, that he must find existing arrangements intolerable. And he knew that he had to be done at great risk to himself. But there was no other way, because we were at the receiving end all the time.
I think the last straw that broke the camel's back, as it were, was a debate in Parliament in 1965, where Lee Kuan Yew got up and spoke for the first time in the House in Malay.
Jikalau kita mahu negeri kita menjadi negeri Cina, apa sebab kita bercantum dengan Melayu?
The gallery was packed and you could hear a pin drop.
Kita menolong orang Melayu dengan cara demokratik sosialis. Bukan bagi dia wang saja ini, meninggikan kebolehannya, kelataiannya, pelajarannya, supaya ia boleh berhidup dengan sama taraf dengan lain-lain kaum di Singapura.
They didn't expect Lee Kuan could speak such good Malay and can get his message across to the Malay crowd, so they were quite scared of it.
Then on top of that, message was putting across. It was not just Malaysia where he appealed to everybody. This is about rural poverty. So that he is directing for a change to a specific Malay audience and to being listened to their rap production. The Solidarity Convention was again another move to bring political pressure to bear on KL that they cannot get away with a racist policy directed towards Singapore, but rather completely misread the picture and thought that we were on the offensive to capture power.
They say they are worried about the Malays. I say, so are we. We want to raise their standard of living. And we will, and faster than they can. And at the end of 5, 10, 15, 20 years, a new generation will grow up that will no longer respond to the special DHF they use. They'll be tuning into the multilingual network. They'll be thinking like us, working like us, trained like us, prepared to live with us like Malaysians. Then we win, and history is on our side.
So he got his shingles in London and thought it over carefully.
got rid of us.
Whichever way my restless mind turned, I could not help but come to one conclusion, and that was to cut Singapore adrift from the rest of Malaysia. Perhaps it will be a good thing to talk with Kuan now, but ultimately I fear we will have no choice but to cut out Singapore from Malaysia in order to save the rest of the body from gangrene.
We can't go on like this. Do you have any ideas to offer?
I think the best thing would be to call it quits. Then we should go our separate ways.
What do you mean, go separate ways?
We leave Malaysia, become an independent state. You'll be relieved from all these troubles. We will also be relieved of troubles from you. All these communal tensions will be over.
If the British got to know of this, they would change policy and agree to the Tunku locking up the PAP leaders.
Lee is in favor. I find that hard to accept.
Yes, provided it's done quickly. If he gets involved with the Malaysian Solidarity Convention, it might not be easy for him to get out.
If this is to work, it should be a joint move. I propose a federation in Singapore, turn the British together. They will have no choice but to agree, if we all stood firm.
To avoid riots, it must be done in one shot. No 3 readings in Parliament. This is the only way to do it without being thwarted by the British or accompanied by civil unrest.
It has to be presented as a fait accompli to the British. If you have allowed it out of courtesy just minutes before the bill is introduced. This is not an agreement. This will be a constitutional amendment. And it has to be done in one emergency parliament session under a special certificate of urgency. When does Parliament reassemble?
9th of August?
9th August, it shall be.
Firstly, an agreement to separate. Secondly, an amendment to the Malaysian Constitution to allow Singapore to separate. Thirdly, a proclamation of independence. The drafts were circulated and amendments made and finalized in about 10 days.
So the arrangement was that we'll meet on the 6th of August, have a final meeting to examine the draft, which had been prepared by Mr. Barker. And I knew at that meeting Mr. Barker would be the principal actor on our side. My role as a negotiator had been to get the Malay leaders into a mood in which they would accept separation agreement with a minimum fuss and order, particularly to avoid matters of defense which Razak had raised.
And it went on for hours. I waited at the Temasek until all the documents were typed because Susin wanted some amendments. Razak's tenor was so unaccustomed to this legal documents. They were getting nowhere. His typing was so slow. So Wong Chusen and Teo Ban Hock, whom Eddie had brought up with him to KL, were waiting outside Razak's office and was summoned in to do the typing. They did the typing probably from the afternoon right up till after dinner. I think it must have gone to about past midnight, according to Eddie Barker's recollection.
Not one of them read the documents.
And he was the only one who was still compos mentis and wanting to read the documents before he signed it. And Razak said, "No, it's your own typist, sign it." So he signed it without reading it. As he said, "Sign Buddha." And he came back, read it, and was relieved that there was no mistake.
I was so relieved that I was sweating profusely, although we were in admission room. Razak was really relieved and passed some drinks to celebrate the occasion. So when he found me sweating, he said, "Well, I'll give you a shirt." As for a shirt, it's actually there. It felt like a prisoner condemned to death and had a last-minute reprieve.
Once we had those documents signed, even if they did not go through Parliament with their 3 readings, that agreement and the declaration would change the whole texture of our relationship.
What was difficult for me was to see my colleagues at the Masjid house when he had to ask me.
Very upset. And Dr. Zhou was equal at the band. The women went through the whole argument all over again, which is actually I can see that too, not in Dr. Zhou. I think said, would you accept it if you got it from the Tunku itself?
So I went to see the Tunku and said, "Look, I've got 2 ministers. They're not going to sign. They're absolutely adamant. Their families are here. They want to see you." He says, "No, I don't want to see them. Nothing more to discuss. You tell them." I said, "No, I've told them. At the least, you must write to them, then they will take your word for it. They've got your own handwriting." So he went to his desk and wrote this letter to Dojin Chai. He says, "Here, give him this. There's no need to discuss anything. It's finished."
My dear Jinchai, I am writing to tell you that I have given the matter of our break with Singapore my utmost consideration. And I find that in the interest of our friendship and the security and peace of Malaysia as a whole, there is absolutely no other way out.
I am prepared to abide by their decision not to sign, not to break, but they will take the responsibility. They will lead the Malaysian solidarity with. I think that clinched the argument because they know that blood will be on their hands.
No, I was really taken back and then, of course, disappointment. Actually, I asked whether this separation was still moving on.
And we pulled it off. So a bloodless coup. It was really a constitutional coup.
The chap I really felt sorry for was Devon Nair. He was our sole member of parliament left in Kuala Lumpur to face the music.
So it was a collapse of something which was so central to our political ideals, strivings. And I was deeply hurt.
He was really upset at the idea of Devon being alone in Malaya to carry on, and that we had abandoned all these people. At that time, the metaphor he used was the spaceman had just gone up. We had sent something into space, and a man had gone out and walked in space. And he said, Devon is like that spaceman walking out in space. I told Devon, look, you've got to convince my husband. It is not his fault.
I told him quite categorically that neither he nor anybody else in Singapore, including my wife, would be able to persuade me to leave the Malaysian Parliament and return to Singapore. I had been elected there and I must go through my full term. That it was a troubled time and he should preserve his equanimity. And I remember him saying, I still have my equanimitas, which was not quite true. I told him yes, and I'm glad. Keep hold of that equanimitas. And what was he going to do? What kind of ideal was he going to offer the people of Singapore? What kind of a future was he going to offer? And it speaks very much for the measure of the man, for the greatness, that with this collapse of a major political ideal, which would have completely overwhelmed lesser men, which he did very ably, assisted by persons like Keng, Swee, Raja, Dochin Chai, and so on.
For us, those who work very hard for merger, we were quite disappointed because throughout we have been working towards a unified country, and now that came to an end.
The corporate operation, original Tennessee is the best in that. Something that we can do other one, one thing out of like
But my heart is saying that's the best news I have heard so far, because during the 2 years I could see the difficulties with these people from KL.
We've done well since our relationship with them now is much better. And they're beginning to understand us, and I hope it stays there.
We disproved that an independent Singapore cannot work. The best thing that ever happened. We couldn't have prospered in Malaysia.
On the 9th day of August 1965, I issued this proclamation of Singapore. Now I, Lee Kuan Yew, Prime Minister of Singapore, do hereby proclaim and declare, on behalf of the people and the government of Singapore, that as from today, the 9th day of August, in the year 1965, Singapore shall forever be a sovereign, democratic, independent nation, founded upon the principles of liberty and justice, and ever seeking the welfare and happiness of the people in a more just and equal society.